The 49ers seem to think their Super Bowl window will open in 2026. Let's see how true that is. Good morning. Welcome to the 49ers Playbook. I'm Grant Cohn. That's former Raiders offensive coordinator Tom Walsh. Today's show is sponsored by Mint Mobile. At Mint, their favorite word is no contracts, no monthly bills, no overages, no hidden fees, no BS. Ditch overpriced wireless and their jaw-dropping monthly bills, unexpected overages, and hidden fees. Plans start at $15 a month at Mint. Make the switch at mintmobile.com/Cohn. That's mintmobile.com/COHN. Upfront payment of $45 required. That's the equivalent of $15 a month. Limited time new customer offer for the first 3 months only. Speeds may slow above 35 gigabytes on unlimited plan. Taxes and fees extra. See Mint Mobile for details. All right, Tom. Tom was like the rest of us watching the 49ers at the trade deadline this week, waiting for them to do something, maybe expecting them to do something. They didn't do anything. How do you interpret that? What do you make of the 49ers' inactivity?
Grant, I think it was a big miss for a couple of reasons. One, they currently do have a need for a defensive lineman, whether it's an edge rusher or an inside player. I look at the Phillips guy, went from Miami to the Eagles, I think for a third-round draft pick. And I'm like, geez, that's not a high price to pay for an impact player. And you go back and watch the Miami-Atlanta ball game, he thoroughly dominated the interior of the Falcons' offensive line, so much to the point that they were required to double him with the center and the guard. And, the Niners need that kind of a player. The thing about it is, with the injuries the Niners have, they're losing players for this season, which is putting a crimp in their run for the playoffs. But I think they fail to understand the impact that the loss of these players like Mykel Williams, how far they're going to carry over into the 2026 season. So this not only impacts them now, it impacts them going forward to 2026, which then if they don't pick up a player now who can help them and who has a projection to carry forward to 2026, now they have to turn back to the draft in 2026 to be able to replenish. They're going to still need an edge rush in the draft. They're still going to need a 3 technique in the draft. And let's be honest, no disrespect, but the Niners have not been the most successful at drafting defensive linemen in the early rounds, especially the first round. They've made more mistakes other than DeForest Buckner. I can't see any big hit where they have struck gold with the defensive lineman in the first round.
Well, Nick Bosa would be the one. He's injured his ACL 3 times now, and that was sort of a layup at the second pick in the draft. They could have taken names out of a hat and gotten a good player there. But you're right. I mean, Javon Kinlaw, Drake Jackson, Mykel Williams, Alfred Collins, no standout players among that group. And they did inherit DeForest Buckner, and then they traded him.
Yeah, unbelievable. And now he's with the Colts. And the Colts talk about the trade at the deadline. They pick up a heck of a corner who could help solidify their defense. They've got really good, strong playoff aspirations the way they're playing. And the other team I thought, which helped themselves, that is going to cost the Niners down the road, is Philadelphia. They added a couple of secondary players. Didn't they pick up Jair Alexander a week ago, and then they made a trade the other day for another corner, and then they got Phillips. So they've got 3 defensive players that they're adding to their package now mid-season to only strengthen them in their playoff run.
And it's funny, the Niners are trying to win a Super Bowl. Jed York, Kyle Shanahan, they've been on this quest to win their first Super Bowl, and they've gotten close. They don't exactly know what it takes. You look at an organization like the Eagles that have gotten it done, and they're not messing around. This is an opportunity, and they went and put their best foot forward, made the best version of themselves, even though, their record is pretty similar to what the Niners record is right now. They're kind of in the same position. One team was just a lot more aggressive.
Grant, that's why I would have done something. From my perspective, the mediocrity or the parity in the league this year allows a team like the Niners, the Rams, Seattle to all be in a position to make a serious playoff run. This is a great chance for the Niners. Think about this. They've got going into the season, they had the weakest schedule in the league. Granted, they've had the most injuries. They've lost more players to, injury from games and all that. And still yet they're right in the hunt. So, this gives you an idea that if they would have made a move, they really could have pushed themselves into a stronger position to be a serious contender at the end of the season. Now, granted, they're going to get some players back before the year's out, but they're going to be missing some key frontline players where the backups, there's a reason why guys are backups. They're not good enough to be the starters. But now you're pushing the backups to be the starters, and that's going to have a few, chinks in your armor, so to speak, when you get down to the playoff run and the games become more competitive and more meaningful as the season closes.
I understand the Niners probably feel like, what's the point of going all in when you don't have Fred Warner and you don't have Nick Bosa and you're probably not going to win the Super Bowl anyway. But like you said, the parity in the league has never been more apparent. It's so wide open. And you have Robert Saleh now. Who's to say you'll have him next year? You have Eddie Pinheiro now. Who's to say he'll be automatic next year? I mean, it seems like this really is a moment, an opportunity that they're not necessarily like capturing as well as they could.
Well, granted, they don't have all the elite star power that they have because of injuries, but to be at their position going into the Ram game this weekend, where they have a chance to, win just as easily as the Rams have a chance to win, and to put themselves in a better run for the playoffs, I just can't see how you can pass on that opportunity. It's such a precarious situation from year to year that when the moment is there, you've got to seize the opportunity to take advantage of it. And, it's more than just rolling the dice.
Yeah, it seems to me that it's pretty impossible to predict which teams are going to be in the Super Bowl this season. I mean, Kansas City and Tampa, who knows? I mean, whatever team you predict probably is going to lose this season, this weekend. So we'll see if the Niners are in there. They're going to be bringing in Asante Samuel Jr. for a workout on Monday after this upcoming game. He's a former second-round pick with the Chargers, had a neck injury, finally healthy. What do you think of the 49ers looking at Asante Samuel Jr.?
Grant, I thought about that. He's had a neck fusion. Okay, so you say a neck injury. Well, yeah, they had to fuse his spine in the neck area. He's going to work out for 5 or 6 other ball clubs. So he's shopping the market. The bottom line is, if the Niners can pick him up at a reasonable price, they may not think that you can see him as a starter this year, but it's good that they could take him now, put him on the active roster, and then in a week or two, if they see that he's not going to be a key factor, put him on IR. They come up with this mysterious injury factor. Put him on ice for the rest of this season. They will have him for next year. And so if he can pass the physical, and they can come up with a dollar figure that compensates, I think it'd be worth signing him. And if nothing else, keep him active, because you're going to have to put him on the 53-man squad, and then IR him, and then you've got him for next year.
Yeah, and what the Niners can do is say, look what we did with Jason Verrett. Similar issue, coming from the same team. You were injured. He was injured. We signed him, gave him a long time to recover, and eventually he had some of his best years with us. So if you want to get your career back on track, why don't you take the Jason Verrett route?
That would be the opportunity that they're giving them if they choose to go that route.
It is interesting, though, that there isn't an immediate need for a cornerback. He'd be signing up potentially to go on IR and play next year. And they definitely need a defensive lineman more than they need a cornerback. But they're so decimated on defense that they need as much as they can get.
Well, Grant, when you look at offenses these days and all the spread formations, the 11 personnel, 4 wides, some teams go empty. You can never have enough corners. And all it takes is a hamstring or a groin injury, and you're going to lose a corner for 3 or 4 weeks. So it's always nice to have an ace in the hole up your sleeve and be able to come up with a guy like Samuel's talent initially to be able to put him back on the field if he's physically able to do it.
let me ask you a question about the Niners training staff. You have a ton of experience with NFL training staffs. Fans get upset when players get injured, especially with Niners, because it seems like they're the most injured team every year. Some of these injuries seem fluky, and unpreventable, like the Fred Warner one. But the re-aggravations, the guy gets hurt, he comes back, they say he's ready to go, but he's not, and he makes the injury worse. Yeturgos Matos the other day re-injured his hamstring in practice. I mean, the famous one is obviously Brock Purdy. So fans say, hey, fire the training staff. They're clearly being too aggressive with these players or throwing them back on the field too soon. Is that the way it works, or are there other factors at play?
Well, I think a lot of it, to be honest, Grant, depends upon the organization and the amount of force, theoretically use that word politely, that a front office or a coaching staff can exert on the training staff about, quote unquote, how ready a player is to get back on the field, how healthy he is, how well is he to go. And the Niners theoretically maybe having some undertones that are forcing the training staff to, quote unquote, say a player's ready to go when the player theoretically may not be ready to go. And I think the fact that the repetitive injuries, like with the Gross Matos and other guys, when they go back out and they're getting injured in practice, when you're not looking at really aggressive practices like in the old days when you padded up and you had thud drills and things like that. Nowadays, they're walkthroughs, they're jog arounds, they're, like I know one of the offensive line coaches said that his scout team has gotten so bad, he has to line up trash cans to be defensive linemen for him to get through some of the walkthroughs. So, the other day, I think it was with the Saints, the Cowboys didn't have the Saints didn't have 10 players for practice. And so you're looking at this type of season where the injury toll is taking its fact. And so, but I can't fault the training staff. If they have a protocol, they have procedures, they're all certified and they're all educated. And, the bottom line is not all players heal at the same pace with the same injuries at the same time frame.
So you're saying that it's not at all it's common in the NFL for a coaching staff or a front office to go to a training staff and say, hey, we need this guy this week.
It's been done. I can say that. It's been done. It's nothing but a bruise, and the guy has a broken fibula. No, the bottom line is you cannot, if you're in the hunt for a playoff spot, you got to get your players back on the field. And you don't want to have a player who you might think might be a malingerer. And so, there's probably a little bit of subtle pressure that's, brought along to get a guy out there, especially when you're down players at that particular position in the first place.
Well, it's an interesting pattern with the Niners. It precedes Kyle Shanahan, but it does seem with Kyle that he doesn't do a great job of protecting his players. His quarterbacks get injured. His running backs, he seems to run them into the ground until they get injured and then go on to the next one. And of course, his dad had the same pattern with Terrell Davis, famously just gave him as many carries as his body could physically handle until he couldn't handle them anymore. Which brings me to my next topic. Christian McCaffrey is on pace to lead the league. He is leading the league in touches. He's leading the league in yards from scrimmage. What a Herculean effort he's put forth so far this season, but it seems unsustainable. It also seems a little strange considering he's not quite the player he was a few years ago. He's averaging 3.5 yards per carry. I guess Kyle Shanahan feels that's the best way to win games, but then they're up like 17 late against the Giants and McCaffrey's still getting carries, and it almost looks like they're trying to pad his stats. How do you interpret moments like that?
Well, I noticed on the game clock last Sunday, it was 1:21 left in the fourth quarter, and they're up comfortably. The game's, the W's already been put in the board, and McCaffrey's still getting carries. And I'm thinking, now why is he in the game at this point? The game's won. There's the risk, and then not only about that factor, I've got a running back behind him, Brian Robinson Jr., who's more than adequate to close out a ball game. And so why am his injury history in the last 3, 4 years, how many games he's missed over the course, and I got a game against the Rams coming up the following Sunday, I'm taking him out. The last 1 minute and 21 seconds of a ball game, what is to be gained by him carrying a ball in a game which is already won? If he gets aggravated with a hamstring or his Achilles, you lose the guy for the following week or how many weeks after that when you really will need him.
It doesn't make any sense from a football standpoint, and it doesn't seem like something a smart coach would do. He seems like a smart coach. He is a smart coach, but he's also sort of the general manager of this team. And maybe there's a conflict of interest here. I mean, someone wanted to give Christian McCaffrey that extension last year. It looked like one of the worst extensions in franchise history, considering he was injured when he signed it. And so maybe now Kyle, if he's wearing a million hats, maybe the GM hat, GM Kyle is thinking, hey, the more I give him the ball, the better that contract looks, and the less heat I get in the organization from the media. I mean, it's a theory.
Well, there are former Niner players who have said that they've been with other ball clubs throughout the league. They say the Niners run and practice at a tempo more intense in a more contracted period of time than other clubs with which they've been throughout their NFL history. And maybe that's a factor in the injury situation about how hard, and I'll use the word how hard Kyle rides them, but there's a reason why they have lost more games to injured players in the last 5 or 6 years than any other. There were over 2,000 lost games because of injured players since 2016 or 17. And by far, it leads the NFL with the most during that time span.
Let me ask you this. I'm asking you to speak for someone who's passed away, but Al Davis, if he were you worked for Al for a long time. If he were the owner of this team and they had this same issue year in and year out, most injured team in the league, how would he feel about that? What would he do about that? And particularly the injuries in practice. How would he feel about those?
That was unforgivable. Al, he says, okay, players are going to get injured in ball game. That's understandable. But he said, my God, to get them hurt in practice, that's bad coaching. You've got to have your drills, your routine, your warm-ups, and those things structured. Get the players through the practices, achieve what you want to achieve, accomplish the drills, the technique, the mechanics, the play polish. But, we always had a rule, stay off the ground, especially with all the trench warfare going on and all that. And we would, instead of running 5 or 6 one-on-ones with pass rush, we'd say, okay, you're going to get 2. And then let's say we're going to go play a team like Seattle on turf up north when they had the King Dome and they had the great pass rushers back then. And they could really get off the ball and accelerate. Well, we would take Art Shell or Henry Lawrence or some of the other tackles, and they would have a one-on-one in pass rush and take a couple reps. After practice, we'd take a wide receiver, take the tackle, and have that wide receiver line up as a defensive end pass rusher and come off the ball full speed in a short distance without contact with the tackle, just so the tackle could get a kick step and get the feel of what it was like to go against a speed guy on the outside. So we would take a wide receiver and say, okay, we just want you to pass rush, come up the field 5 yards, full speed, off the edge, on your movement, bam, and have the tackle kick step and get the feel of passing against speed. And rather than taking another defensive lineman and going at him one-on-one, but we just, rather than risking an injury in that respect, we would just use a controlled environment to give the tackle the simulation of what it's going to take to get a kick step against a speed pass rusher.
Bill Kennedy has a question for you. Sorry, off topic, Tom. What is it going to take for the Raiders to be competitive? New ownership, new coaching staff, the Raiders.
I saw something the other day. Tom Brady cloned a dog. Okay. Well, Tom, he's with this company in Texas or wherever that he's a invested in it and all that. He needs to be cloning players and quarterbacks and all that rather than cloning dogs. But anyway, there's several players away. They drafted a running back with the 6th pick in the first round, and he needs to carry the ball more than 12 or 13 times a game. I'm sorry, you got to be able to run the rock, and you can't go play a team and say you want to run the ball, and then 8 of the first 10 plays you call are passes in a game in which you claim you want to run the ball. So I just, there's a myriad of issues.
Yeah, and Chip Kelly is a lot of them. Spider369 says Mac Jones QB1. All right, let me ask Tom about that right now. Mac Jones is 5-2. He's working without much of a running game. He doesn't have Ricky Pearsall. His defense is decimated. He's already beaten the Rams once. If he finds a way to win this game on Sunday, is there a full-blown quarterback controversy? What's at stake for him?
I don't think there's a controversy at all because I'm going to play Mac as long as I can. And the other thing is the deeper I get into the schedule and the closer we get to the playoffs and the deeper we get in with the run and we get some wins, I am not going to take Mac out and put in Brock Purdy, who has been on the sideline for 6 weeks, 7 weeks by the time that they ever decide to use him, if they choose to use him. And when he has yet to exhibit in practice that he is 100% full speed, ready to go. There's a chemistry right now with that offense, and these players have built a relationship with Mac. There's a confidence factor that they have with Mac. The offensive line knows him and knows how he sets and knows his timing for getting the ball out. So, other than the weakness of the right tackle in pass pro, McKivitz, where you need some chips and you need some other factors to help him out, they're surviving up front. The running game, that's an iffy situation, and a lot of it depends upon the kind of runs that Kyle calls as to how effective the run game can be. And I think he showed a couple of weeks ago when he went to more of a downhill run game with McCaffrey even, how much more effective that style is rather than trying to run the stretch plays, the outside zones and all that stuff. So I tell you, I'm more than happy to go with Mac. There is no controversy.
So are you saying that you think there's a scenario where if Mac Jones stays healthy and keeps up his current level of play that Brock Purdy doesn't play again this season?
I would not take him out and put in Brock, even though Mac is still winning. There's no way. Especially when Brock has gone for so many weeks without having a full speed competitive environment. Look at what happened in the Jacksonville game, I believe, when they put him in. He was not his normal self. But then now I worry about how rusty he's going to be, how his timing's going to be off, his relationship with the receivers. Mac Jones has a better relationship with Bourne than Brock will have coming off the bench. I wouldn't make the change. I'm sorry. I'd just go with Mac Jones. There's no question from my perspective that I cannot win ball games with Mac Jones at quarterback.
I mean, that's the impression I'm getting from the organization, that they're in no rush to bring back Brock Purdy for a lot of reasons, and they haven't exactly been transparent about how severe the injury is. Not to go too deep into hypotheticals, but I can't help myself right now. If Brock doesn't play again this year and Mac keeps playing well and this team goes to the playoffs and he maybe wins a playoff game, where do they stand at quarterback going into 2026? I mean, do they trade Mac do they sell high on Mac? Do they keep both? I mean, do they have a quarterback competition next year? Where could this go?
Well, the thing about it is, if you were to trade Mac Jones and you look at Brock's injury history going forward to 2026, knowing that chances are he's not going to make it through the whole season because he hasn't in the last couple of years. So where are you going to go for your number 2 quarterback? So I can't trade Mac Jones. You're only as good. You go look at the mistake that, for example, Washington made the other day with leaving Daniels in the ball game when it was a 38-7 ball game, and the guy hyperextends an elbow, and now he's going to be out several more weeks. Why was he on the field with his injury history and coming off injuries, and the game's a total blowout? You're down 31 points. You got no chance. You're not producing. Why is he out there?
I don't know. It seems like a potential fireable offense for the head coach. I mean, you just jeopardized the franchise, buddy. What were you thinking?
Well, that's the same thing with the Niners. I'm not going to think about this. We have no idea of how successful the Niners are going to be going forward to make it the playoff run. But I don't want to do anything now that's going to upset the apple cart. I mean, there is a flow with the offense right now. And you're winning ball games. You're scoring some points, not as many as you'd like for a variety of reasons. But by the same token, hey, you're only going to get better. Your players are going to only gain more confidence, and you're only going to have a better rapport between the receivers and the quarterback as you go forward, and they spend more time together.
Yeah, and their offense isn't losing them games the way it really did against Jacksonville. I mean, Mac Jones hasn't been the MVP of the league, but he's not costing them games. He's a big reason they're 5-2. Ezio Sanchez says, Mr. Walsh, can you give a shout out to Rubidoux High School?
Oh, Rubidoux High School. I tell you what, there's some NFL players who've come through there, and coaches also. George Warhop, the offensive line coach for the Baltimore Ravens, is a product of Rubidoux High School. Solomon Wilcots, who played in the NFL and was a broadcaster for CBS. Oh, yeah, so there's Rubidoux.
Where is Rubidoux?
It's a suburb of Riverside, Southern California, out there. Harupa Hills, Avon, Glen Avon. Used to be called Billy Goes Acres in the old days.
You know California better than me. Spider369 says Purdy's mobility is what keeps him relevant. Well, without his mobility, I don't know how effective he is. We'll see.
It's a win-lose situation with him. You like the mobility factor because he can extend plays and things of that nature, but then also when he exposes himself more to injury when he's out there, on the perimeter.
Joshua Wyatt says, I'm worried Mac's not going to make it. Bloody nose, ripped jersey, knee brace, and Colton McTurn style. Kyle offense needs the world's toughest quarterback. Well, to Mac's credit, through 7 starts, he's been very tough, but I see what Josh Wyatt is saying there. It's going to take, he's got a long way to go, and he's got a lot more hits to take.
Well, the thing about it now, when I design a game for Mac in a past concept, I'm going to make sure I have receivers underneath or checkdowns who are going to be able to get out, knowing that if he has any semblance of pressure, that since he cannot escape the pocket, does not have great improvisational skills in terms of getting outside the perimeter and outside the rush. By design, as the coordinator and the play designer, I've got to have checkdowns and quick releases for him to whom he can dump the ball if we do have a busted protection or there's a free rusher coming through, so he can get the ball out of his hands and avoid taking the hit. That's coach's responsibility to keep that quarterback upright.
I see what you're saying. How about this? Playoff odds. The Niners are 6-3. It seems like, they didn't go for it at the trade deadline, but it seems like there's a very good chance they're going to make the playoffs. Do you have any figures on this?
Right now, the way I see it, and I saw statistics and some numbers, and right now the odds of the Rams, before the game this coming Sunday, the odds of the Rams getting to the playoffs are 91%. The odds of the Seahawks, there's your sleeper in the West, getting to the playoffs, 88%. The odds of the Niners getting to the playoffs, 81%. And I tell you, Seattle just added a wide receiver from the Saints that they got for a 3rd round or 4th round draft pick, Shaheed, the wide receiver, who's a speed guy, and that's going to give them another weapon on the outside. And I'll tell you what, their defense in Seattle is darn good, and their offense is very productive. They got a couple of decent running backs. They've got a great wide receiver, and now they added another speed receiver, which will help. Uh, they're kind of lacking a little bit of a tight end in the passing game, and that's about the only thing that they're shy on. Their offensive line's playing pretty good. They got a rookie from North Dakota State, I think, playing a left guard, but they're playing well and their record on the road is phenomenal. They have a better record on the road than they do at home.
You don't expect that from the Seahawks.
They always had a home field advantage for years when they were playing in the Kingdom. That was like they used to pipe in the noise and all that stuff. Oh my God. You couldn't hear yourself think. You'd be up in the press box. You got a coach right next to you. You couldn't carry on a conversation. The noise was so loud. But anyway, I tell you what, you got to keep an eye on the Seahawks. The other team I really like, and they made themselves better immensely in the trade deadline, is the Colts. They picked up the corner from the Jets. They're going to get back Javarius Ward. They got DeForest Buckner. They've got a great run game with Taylor and Jones. I think was it Daniel Jones is the quarterback for them. He's having a heck of a season, and so since they solved that quarterback situation in Indianapolis, they're on the upswing.
The Seahawks are interesting to me. They're having such a good season with Sam Darnold. They're passing the ball so well. Their offensive coordinator is Clint Kubiak. He was with the Niners when they went to the Super Bowl 2 years ago. He was their passing game coordinator. And I guess he was largely responsible for Brock Purdy's MVP caliber season. Then he leaves. Purdy hasn't quite been the same. He was in New Orleans last year, Kubiak. Carr had one of the best seasons of his career before he got hurt. Now he's in Seattle, and Sam Darnold's going crazy. So maybe Gary Kubiak's eldest son is pretty good.
I tell you what, I'm impressed watching them off. The other day, Kubiak calling plays. Darnold was 14 for 14. He didn't have an incompletion until the third quarter, and he joked about the fact that it's like the old no-hitter deal, where a guy on the bench tells the pitcher, you're throwing a no-hitter. Well, one of the Seahawk players told Darnold he had not thrown an incomplete pass, and he goes out, and all of a sudden, bam, there's an incompletion. He says the guy ruined his streak. He jinxed them, But I tell you what, right now, Darnold is playing quite well, and Seattle has got the world of confidence. I think they play the Cardinals this weekend, don't they?
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, I tell you what, don't sell Seattle short.
Well, look, go ahead.
They're coming to Santa Clara later this year. That's going to be a tougher game than you think. The Niners always think, well, we got Seattle in Santa Clara. It's going to be a win. This year, you cannot make that concession.
Mac Jones and the Niners. We know the Niners defense isn't going to be elite this year after the injuries, and they're, not doing anything at the deadline. But the offense, if Ricky Pearsall ever comes back, George Kittle's getting back into playing shape, Jawan Jennings getting slightly healthier, how much potential does this offense have down the stretch?
My biggest concern in looking at that picture is that they don't really have anybody to take the top off the defense. Pearsall gave them that vertical concept. They don't have it without him. So from that perspective, that means my underneath passing game, my horizontal stretch concepts, and by layering my intermediate passing game, has to function. And I'm going to have to play small ball basically with the Niners offense, because I don't have the deep threat who can get me the 45 or 50 yarder, or I don't have Deebo Samuels to run the jet sweep and take a negative yardage play, a 0 yards pass, and take it 80 yards or 65 yards or 40 yards for the big play. I think you look at McCaffrey, his longest run for the year has been like 15, 16 yards. Brian Robinson Jr. has a 21-yarder, an 18-yarder, but they don't have a running back who's taken 156 or 60 yards for a touchdown this year, have they? So the big play element is not in the passing game, and it's not there in the run game. So they're going to end up using an old Hank Stram term. They are going to have to matriculate the ball down the field. They're going to have 8, 9, 10, 12 play drives. They're not going to have a 4-play drive, a 3-play drive, unless they get the ball on the opponent's field position where they're on the opponent's 40-yard line. And the other thing is the Niners are not getting turnovers defensively to be able to help the offense by giving the offense a shorter field. How many interceptions have the Niners got this year? One or two?
One.
How many fumble recoveries have they had this year?
I'm not sure, but not a lot.
Factor that's going to favor the offense by giving them a short field. So the Niners are going to have to earn their points, which means no penalties, no sacks, no fumbles, no interceptions, those kind of things. And so they're going to have to be more methodical, and Kyle's going to have to be on his game and be sensible about down and distance situations, clock management and everything to put them in the best situation advantageous to score points.
That's why I feel like Ricky Pearsall and Brandon Ayuk are so important this season, because they're theoretically the explosive element in this offense. It's not Christian. I mean, I don't think it's George Kittle at this point in his career. So I don't know if Ricky Pearsall is ever going to come back. They said it was like a minor PCL injury. It's been about 6 weeks. And then there's Brandon Ayuk. I mean, from a business perspective, I think we've talked about this before, but it seems like the Niners or fans are losing hope that he's going to come back every week. That's no update. Does he really have any incentive to play again for the 49ers this year, or would it be better off for him to just go to the offseason?
If he's not mentally 100% healed, regardless of how his knee may be, or whether it's Pearsall or Ayuk or whatever, they're not going to be able to get on the field and play and turn it loose. And so, if you're not out there physically and mentally ready to play, you have no business being on the field.
Fair enough. All right, let's talk about this game this weekend. It's a huge game, Niners against the Rams. If the Niners win this game, they are really in business in the playoff picture. But they're going to have to, and they've beaten the Rams already in SoFi, but they did it with Fred Warner. This time they're going to have to do it without him. But let's talk about the Niners offense against the Rams defense. It's a hell of a defense. What do the Niners have to do in this particular matchup?
Well, number one, protection. Okay. Now, the Rams do have a couple guys who can get some sacks. And besides Jared Verse, they got Brian Young, who's got 9 sacks or 8 sacks. He's averaging at least 1 sack a ball game. They got a couple of linebackers making plays. They got a safety making tackles left and right. So they're going to have to play a clean ball game. Ball control and discipline are going to be important. And it's going to be imperative, I think, for the Niners to, and let's say Kyle, because the offense starts with him and ends with him, to be honest, in terms of play selection and utilization of his personnel. They're going to have a good run game, and they're going to have to crank up the play action pass game to be able to help with the protection, to be able to pull up the linebackers. So there are windows into which Mac can throw the ball in the intermediate level of the field.
All right, well, let's take a look at pass reps. Get it on the field, on the screen. Okay. If you're new, this is the Playbook breakdown segment of 49ers Playbook, and it's powered by Pass Reps, where we make you smarter about football every week. You can get pass reps yourself and actually practice calling plays before Sunday for only $1.99 a month. Just go to passreps.com or click the link in the description. All right, Tom, what are we looking at today?
Okay, this is one of my all-time favorites because of all the options it offers the quarterback and the receivers. 496 wide drag. I can run this on a third down situation, regardless of what the defense is. If they come up and play a one robber scheme and all that, I can take the 4 route on the outside, on the right side of the screen as you look at it, a one-on-one against the corner. If I get any kind of a different 2 deep shell, a cover 4 scheme, or a 3 deep shell, I've got the inside receiver on the slot side running the 9 route through, which is going to take the top off of the defense and then open up a window into which the outside receiver can run the square in route somewhere between 15 and 17 yards. And then I'm going to layer it underneath with the tight end on the drag route. So I have a high-low in a zone situation there, that if the linebackers lay back and squeeze the in route, I've got Kittle or Tongas, who I think should be in the ball game more frequently than he is, running the drag route where I can put the ball off down to him. And so you get a clean shot. Look at the holes you have as you look at the situation in terms of coverage, where you've got layers horizontally and vertically into which you can make the throws. And so this gives me options regardless of coverage. I'm not stuck, with a robber scheme where I've got the in route going over the top, because I don't want to mess with the throwing that versus the robber. I want to throw one-on-one to the outside on the 4 route. Some teams will run a 5 route on the outside with a single receiver to that side and run the comeback. I like the hook route because you're turning back into the quarterback and not making that diagonal throw across the field. And you've got a nice window to pump the ball in. As you can see, there's some really nice holes against zone defense, be it cover 2, cover 4, or even cover 3. And it just gives you great options. And Mac processes well. He makes good decisions. I tell you, mentally, I'm very impressed with how he plays the game.
The only thing with this play is that it seems you're going to need to help McKivitz block long enough to get the ball to that square end.
Correct. And what I'm going to do is I'm sliding weak side, so that puts the fullback or the remaining back in the backfield on strong side dual pickup. So instead of free releasing him, I can make sure that he polices the pocket with an eye on McKivitz to make sure that he doesn't get beat off the edge quick enough. And rather than check out the fullback late, I would just have him stay and protect and police the pocket, slide line weak, and then have your fullback strong and hold them.
Who do you like against man coverage?
I tell you, the Rams secondary is decent, not great. And I tell you, I would look for Mac to be looking for Bourne on critical down and distance if I'm throwing square ends and things like that. Now, if I want to throw underneath routes, crossing routes, or juke routes, or jerk routes, as we call them, where you have misdirection, I've got Jennings, who's adept at doing that, and I got Kittle, who's adept at doing that. And the one thing for which I'd have a concern against the Rams with the offensive line and the situation for the Niners is I've got to make sure my run game on first down and second down does not leave me in 3rd and 9, 3rd and 11, 3rd and 12. Forbid that we get penalties for holding or whatever. And if I can keep it in a manageable distance, then I have all of my receivers who can be a factor because I can throw the ball. If it's 3rd and 4 to 6, I don't need to throw a 15-yard square in to get a first down. But if it's 3rd and 12 all the time, I can't be throwing a 5-yard shallow cross and think the back or the receiver can catch it and run for 7 additional yards to get me the first down. So the key thing for me is to keep the sticks in first down, second down, that allow me to be favorable in my 3rd down situation. So Kyle's going to have the run game, the play action pass game, where he can also make the check downs on play action pass. That gets me to a 3rd and favorable situation. Don't be afraid to check the ball down. Don't hold it for the big chunk play. Lay it off and call the next play and keep going.
Yeah, because anytime the Niners get in like an obvious passing situation, McKivitz is going to be the liability there. And like, it was interesting against the Giants. They weren't in many obvious passing situations against the Giants. They created one for themselves right at the end of the first half, even though they were going to get the ball to start the second half. They called that long developing drop back pass play on 1st and 10. And Brian Burns stripped the ball from Mac Jones and almost like got the Giants back in the game. But of course, they're so bad they missed the field goal. But that was interesting. I'm sorry, from Kyle's perspective, that was bad game management. Okay, I'm sorry. There's just, especially when I'm getting the ball back just at the second half, and then knowing that I have a weakness and they've got a great pass rusher who's had like 10 sacks in 7 or 8 ball games, Burns over there on the weak side, and I got McKivitz. If I'm going to do something like that, I need to make sure my design has a double on their best pass rusher, which allows the quarterback, Mac in this case, to make the throw. But it's your passing game, Grant, starts with protection. That's number one. Before you start drawing up all these fancy routes on the board and have all these elaborate ideas and all that, you better know
which player on the opponent's team I need to control in pass protection. We used to always joke, hey, your quarterback cannot make any good throws when his tits are to the sky and he's flat on his back on the ground. Okay. I got to keep the quarterback up. I got to keep him standing in the pocket to be able to allow him to make those throws.
Okay. Well, let's hold on. What I wanted to say was, you just saw the breakdown. Now test your own football IQ. Pass reps updates weekly, $199 a month. The link's below. Just don't just watch the game. Call it at passreps.com. And now let's make some prizepicks.com. Hold on, let me get that on the screen. Prize picks for the Niners weekly. You might be the best prize picker we got. You seem to know what's going to happen, Tom. So today, Christian McCaffrey, 120.5 all-purpose yards, 120.5. He went for 173 against the Giants and 139 against the Rams earlier this season.
I'll say more.
As long as he's upright, they're going to keep giving him the ball.
Exactly. You know what? This week he may carry the ball 25 times a game and get 12 targets in the passing game.
Yeah.
So Kyle's got to pull out all stops and win this ball game, because they need that advantage and that edge in the standings and in the playoff hunt. They've got to win this ball game.
Okay, here's another one for Christian. 18.5 rushing attempts.
I'll say more. Knowing Kyle, he may have that many in the first half.
George Kittle, 45.5 receiving yards.
I'll say fewer.
It doesn't seem like they're not.
Right now, they're not using George well. I'm sorry. It's time to break him out. Get him out of the bubble wrap and say, George, you either can run or you can't run. You can play, you can't play. If you can't, I'm going to get Tongas out there, because my best percentage of completions to anybody in the Niner offense is to Tongas.
Yep, I agree. Matthew Stafford, 267.5 passing yards.
Oh, my goodness. I'll tell you what. He is having a MVP year. He leads the league in touchdown passes with 21. 3 more than the number. He's only got 2 picks all year. His sacks he's around 13, 14 sacks, so decent there. I tell you, he can throw for 400. He's got great Puka Nakua's got 84% completions and targets from Stafford. And in only 7 ball games, he's number 4 in the league in yardage receiving with over 700 and 84% completion factor. Throw the ball to Puka Nakua. And then I've got Devontae Adams on the outside, who's got 8 touchdown receptions so far this year. Stafford's throwing 9 TD passes in the last 2 games. I'll tell you what, let me say something since we haven't talked about defense yet, the Robert Saleh. If you blitz this guy's got the highest touchdown ratio percentage against blitzes than any other quarterback in the league. He makes Mahomes look like child's play. This guy will kill you. You blitz him, the ball's coming out. He's got arm talent and he's got speed with the wide receivers where he's going to hit you for the big play. So I'll take more on his passing yardage.
Okay, well, those are our picks. Make sure you download Prize Picks today. Use promo code COHN, play $5 and get $50 instantly in lineups when you use that promo code COHN. All right, before we get out of here, let's help Robert Saleh, like you said. What are the keys for the 49ers defense against the Rams offense? Like you just mentioned, you can't blitz Matthew Stafford.
That's the one thing about which is a concern. And, I tell you what.
Because how else are they going to generate pressure?
See, the only other concept that he may utilize is a fire zone scheme. And hopefully he's learned from what he tried a couple of weeks ago when the fire zone, had holes like Swiss cheese in it. But he's going to have to play a high percentage zone and say, okay, we're going to have to play great coverage, force Stafford to throw the ball underneath, and then make tackles. The best defense for the Niners is for Stafford to be on the sideline, which now puts more pressure on Kyle to control the clock, to control the ball, to eat up clock time with offense. That's the number one aspect of the game that can help Saleh and the defense the most. is not to be on the field. And that's up to Kyle to make sure that that doesn't happen, because he has to come up with some drives that are going to eat the clock. Where are the 12 and 14 play drives? I have an 18 play drive. I remember one game we were running offense and we had the ball on the opening kickoff. We ran through the whole first quarter and into the second quarter with 18 snaps on offense. That'd be great. But then you better score when you have that drive, because you're not going to get many drives because you just ate up the whole first quarter. You got to produce some points. And see, that's another thing. The Niners have the big advantage field goal kicking with your guy Pinheiro. And the biggest weakness for the Rams is their kicking game. Their field goal kicker, the kid from Stanford Carty, is having a very shaky year. And that's where the advantage may come down at the end of the ball game. If it's a tie ball game or tight ball game, Pinheiro's got a chance to win it. But the Niners have got to get him to that position with the score at such a point where he can be the difference maker for the Niners.
That's interesting. So, like, the offense isn't really there to win the game for the Niners. It's there to sort of help the defense, win time of possession, keep Stafford off the field. But really, it's all about their kicker. The Niners have the best kicker in the game, and if they don't turn the ball over on offense and they can just convert some third downs and win time of possession, Eddie P just might win the game for him.
If they can play small ball successfully offensively, they could win this ball game like 20-17. If they get out there and they're in long yardage situations all day, and Mac Jones is exposed to the pass rush and getting knocked down, getting sacked, and they're getting 3 and outs and things like that, Stafford's going to find a way to make some throws, and then the Rams will win the game. It depends upon how Kyle structures that offensive design and the success of the offense as to whether the Niners are going to win, because the Niners defense, when they're exposed, they have too many holes. They have too much weakness to be able to shut Stafford down. And the weapons the Rams have in the passing game are too much for the Niners to handle, because they can't get pressure on the quarterback. So now they're going to be exposed at linebacker and secondary play in pass coverage.
Yeah, it seems like the best the Niners defense can do is sort of like a bend but don't break situation, but Stafford could really light them up. What is your prediction? How do you think this game's going to go?
I look at it this way. This is going to be one of these 23-17 ball games. And I think, unfortunately, Kyle being Kyle, I kind of think that he's going to spit the bit a bit, and you're going to look at the Rams pulling this game out, despite the weakness they have in their field goal kicker, who misses extra points as well as field goals. And if Kyle would change his whole mindset and go out there and realize that the offense can control the game to the point to limit the number of snaps that Stafford gets, then now the Niners have a chance to win the game. You got to keep Stafford off the field. I can't get into a shooting match because I don't have the guns at wide receiver vertically to be able to win for the Niners with the big play. It's not there. Whereas the Rams have the big play element automatically. They've got this other kid with, is it Atwell? Tutu Atwell is there. The guy had an 88-yarder, and he's an unknown factor. All of a sudden, the guy's ripping out a big gainer, and they have that speed and they have that element, and they've got Devontae Adams and they've got Puka Nacua, and those guys are a difference maker. If you let them have that opportunity, you've got to be able to keep them off the field.
Well, one of the biggest wins for the Niners this year was week 1 against the Seahawks, and a big way they won that game was their offense not scoring a lot of points. They scored 17 points, but they held the ball for more than 37 minutes. And afterward, I saw Robert Saleh in the locker room, and he was so giddy. His defense had just given up 13 points and sealed the victory with a forced fumble, and he slapped me on the back and said, "It's nice when the offense holds the ball like that. If only I had an offense in New York that could just hold the ball like that." So that's the game plan.
That is true. I'd say, hey, there's no secret about it. If the Niners can dominate the clock, can move the ball up and down the field, put points on the board, Stafford can't score when he's sitting on the bench.
It's true. All right. Well, it's time for me to go see if Brock Purdy's toe feels any better or if Ricky Pearsall's knee feels any better. I'm thinking no. It's going to be a while. But Tom, this is great. And again, I think we deserved the game ball for last week. They had a rough game in Houston. We brought them right back. And if they beat the Rams, we're gonna have to have a spot on the front office, or at least the coaching
Tell you
staff.
what, they beat the Rams this week. Their playoff aspirations and opportunities just go to the top of the list. They really put themselves into that situation where they're working downhill from that point forward if they can get over this hurdle.
And if they lose, maybe they'll regret doing nothing at the trade deadline. We'll see. Tom, thank you very much. See you next week.
You're welcome, Grant. Enjoy your trip to Santa Clara.
See you guys.